The Tide 5.
5 separate sporting topics, roughly a minute or so on each. And when the bell reminds us, we'll move on to the next one. Is Russell Coutts right? And define an expert dolphin observer. Lachlan, if you can. The All Whites lost to Egypt. Did you watch any of that game? Because we play another friendly in the next couple of days. Is it a Canes versus Chiefs final? Can we call it already on Super Rugby? How many of the current NRL top 8 are going to be in the top 8 at the end of the season? The new stylised St. George cross on the England shirt. You approve? And the Endura crowd and the Waz crowd. Let's start there because I'm going to ask TK about this as well when Tony joins us in an hour. I watched the Warriors on a Friday night, of course, and to hear Tohu Harris say that the crowd got them home late, I'm not surprised because that was a raucous, boisterous, rowdy, fun. As close, I reckon, in New Zealand as you'd get to a football crowd overseas. People go along to the Warriors, Lachlan, and they are quite uninhibited in their support, aren't they? And I was saying earlier to Sean today that the only other things of late in New Zealand that I can draw a parallel alongside. Look, the Breakers crowd's a different crowd. That's an enclosed stadium, and they go off. I understand that. The Football Ferns against Norway, that packed house at Eden Park, different kind of sporting crowd. And the Black Ferns World Cup final, different kind of sporting crowd. And maybe that's part of the thing, is that the rugby crowd in New Zealand is still a traditional kind of rugby crowd. It's changing, of course. Demographics and psychographs are changing. But there's something fun about the Warriors, which rugby in this country still isn't able to plug into. However, the Endrua, that crowd captured the essence of what the Warriors crowd brought. People going along to sports matches and just absolutely losing themselves and letting themselves go and letting themselves have fun. We don't do that with rugby that often, do we?
Well, no, we never have. Well, not never.
Around the sevens we did, but no, not in 15s rugby.
Well, no,
we don't.
because that was a fun party, and what happened? It got canned.
No, it was in Wellington, mate. So.
Yeah, and then they moved it to Hamilton, where nothing happens, and shock, it died.
That was the end of it, yeah.
But I mean, All Blacks games do tend to have a bit of an... Well, at least when I went to quite a few All Blacks games when I was in my teens and I was at high school, and those had a fun energy about them. Particularly, it was a South African one that I remember. It was a great atmosphere. And I haven't been to an All Blacks game apart from the World Cup last year in a while. But Super Rugby games have just always lacked that. I've never been to a Super Rugby game that I've walked away going...
No, at the very beginning, and the ones at Athletic Park were just riotous. They were fantastic fun. And when they first moved to the Cape... When they took them around out of Wellington, and they did go to New Plymouth and Palmerston North and Hawke's Bay, and that you normally got a bit of a different crowd, a bit more of a fun crowd. But they've sterilised it so much, that competition, and they've mucked around with it so much that...
Well, they've mucked around with it. This is what makes... 3 of the best competitions that I know off the top of my head are the NFL, NRL, Premier League, and AFL. I'll put the AFL up there. Because they are 4 comps that largely have had the same structure for decades.
Yeah.
Or if they've changed, it's been minor changes, and then there's a bit of a gap until they make another big change. And they're also teams with history, which Super Rugby can't help, unfortunately, but they're teams with history that people latch onto. And then when you leave competitions as they are when they are doing well and you leave them alone, then it just builds momentum. It keeps building it. Something as simple as on Friday night when the Raiders went ahead against the Warriors, I got a bit of ahead myself. And I went back and looked at every single season from 2000 up until now where a team has started 0-3 or 0-4 and how they've fared. Now, if the Warriors had lost, there's actually some stats that back them up, but it doesn't matter now. But I did all that, and even looking back on records in 2006 versus records now, because you played the same number of games and you played a collection of teams twice and some once. The final system was roughly the same, the time of year that it played was the same. It's just kind of cool, at least for me as someone who loves their stats and the history of the sport, learning about it, comparing those years. Now, I can't compare Super Rugby from 2007 to now because it's a totally different comp.
Yeah.
I don't even look at the comp in 2022 last year and even this year as anywhere near as difficult as what the Crusaders won, say, in 2006 or 2005, or what the Chiefs managed to do in 2009 when they got to a final out of nowhere. I just don't compare them because they're different competitions.
In terms of the crowd, I'd say that the NPC gets it. And, when you saw Taranaki against Hawke's Bay last year in that final in New Plymouth, again, that was a really fun, boisterous crowd. Somehow Super Rugby, look, the Fishheads have got to realise that fan engagement and fan-centric aren't titles in a PowerPoint presentation. Look at the crowd at the Indrua, look at the Warriors. That's actually it in reality. Is Russell Coutts right? And what is an expert dolphin observer?
I have no idea what an expert... I would assume an expert dolphin observer is some weird, strange way of saying that someone's a marine biologist.
Isn't it? Wouldn't you expect that?
Yeah.
You know, because he only used those words, ladies and gentlemen, because somebody has invoiced him for that. Somebody said, you're going to need this amount of expert dolphin observers. Yeah. And this is what it's going to cost you. Because it was really unusual, I thought, in that press statement from him, that he itemised them at $600 a day. What he was doing was saying this is a rort. That's what he was saying by saying that. In his opinion, he's getting fleeced here.
Exactly.
That's what he was saying. Now, whether that's right or wrong, that's up to you to decide. But what I'm just pointing out is that's why he brought that up. You've got to read in between the lines of these press releases and press statements. What he did was he sat down with an interview, read out a press release, took one question, left the interview, right? So he had a statement to make. That's what he was trying to do. Is he right?
I was about to say, what was your question again? Well, yeah, he is right. And the thing about it that's a little bit... what's kind of amusing is that I feel like he's saying... I mean, I'm not saying anything new. The thing that... It was like when I was sort of getting ideas for the show today. I sort of couldn't really follow up what he said. Because I think he said everything that was right. I don't think he said anything wrong. I think there's a couple of little
all
angles
you're going to do is they'll just go to some left-wing councillors and some Labour Party members and that, and they'll just go, he's a this, he's a that, he's entitled, he's a billionaire, he's an arsehole. They'll say, you just get the usual shouting, screeching, screaming mob that hate what he's saying will give you the sound bites that the left-wing media, mainstream media will use. That's just too obvious for me. You know, the hard discussion is to talk about this in rational adult terms and say, you know, is this right that this happens? That what happens? That the day's racing is postponed? That he comes out and says that? Well, no, there are groups that are having their hand in the till.
No, it's not. But it's what's normal in this country.
It's normal in the world, people, is what it is.
Well, yeah, everyone probably is. But we see it firsthand here, and it's been going on for a couple of years with various things. It happened with the Auckland event where no one could be smart enough or proactive enough to get up and sort that piece of land out. Everyone just sat around and passed bits of paper around and complained.
It. Till in the end he decided no, he couldn't be bothered.
Yeah. It nearly happened with the whole supercars thing where they couldn't get around here, and they've finally got one, which will probably be canned soon anyway.
Well, mate, there's somebody's going to find a taniwha in a creek somewhere around that area, and that's going to need paying. And, you know, I mean, look, one of the great things I think in New Zealand is when you drive down the main state highway to Meremere, and there's that big thicket there. Remember that? There's a taniwha in the thicket, and they had to pay the taniwha out because otherwise. And so they just rerouted the motorway around it. It's just idiocy. It's just the height of idiocy in front of your eyes every time I drive down there.
And it is. But the whole general idea of it is something that, I don't know, I'm just getting bored of it now. I'm getting bored of all this being the same thing. I'm getting bored of things like certain groups, doesn't have to be iwi groups, anyone getting in the way of anything good happening. Whether they're sporting events, whether it's concerts, whether it's anything. We hear about it so much in this country that something can't happen because, the Auckland Council are a bunch of lefties and don't want to motor race on their streets, for example.
Or Wellington City Council.
Or Wellington, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of seeing a bunch of people who wear their fancy suits, get their six-figure salary, walk into an office, and they sit there and they complain about things, they shuffle paper around, they don't actually do anything, nothing gets done, pipes don't get fixed in Wellington, there's leaks everywhere, things go wrong in Auckland, and you're supposedly the experts to fix things, and you never do. It's just a thing about this country that is so infuriating, particularly, not to make it about me, but particularly for younger people. What is there about New Zealand that is showing itself to me that you should base yourself here, you should live here, set your life up, have your family here, work here, nowhere's better than New Zealand? There's nothing about it. That's why everyone my age is moving overseas. The amount of people that I know that are living in Europe or doing their hot girl summer holidays in Europe, or people that have moved to the UK, so many people have moved to Australia, and so many are either have done it or in the process of wanting to do it. Because this country is not a great aspirational place for people my age.
I think he was right, Russell, but I just think that it's just the way that New Zealand is these days. Stop moaning about it. If it costs you $300,000 here to get the race going, well, I'm sure you're making that in pocket change, Russ, so get on with it, pal. The All Whites lost to Egypt. Did you watch any of this?
No.
The New Zealand men's national team has turned into the football ferns, mate. We are incapable of scoring a goal.
Well, apparently
it's embarrassing to watch.
I saw some complaints on Twitter from about 1 or 2 different accounts that watched the game that said, the penalty that was awarded that Egypt scored shouldn't have been awarded.
Dodgy pen.
But
we didn't fire a shot. We had one free kick, right? That hit the bar. The rest of the time we pass it backwards, mate. We're the buttocks. We just turn around and pass it backwards. I think it's called keeping possession. It's not keeping possession. You're in no threat at all to the opposition. We just get the ball, turn around and pass it backwards.
But you know what it is? Like in a year's time or whatever, when they're looking back over of fixtures over this period for the Aussies, like, well, hey, look, Egypt are a good side. They only lost 1-0. That was a competitive game.
That's how New Zealand operates. So KPI box, we only lost 1-0 there. By the way, Danny Hay coming back as assistant coach for Auckland FC is the best thing that has happened to New Zealand football in goddamn years. Great decision there. The new stylised St George cross on the England shirt. We were just having a bit of creative fun, said Nike.
You know, they said that it was what's the term? Paying homage? Is that what people say?
Well, why don't you go and have some creative fun drawing with felt pen all over your noddy in the toilet? Because why do you actually have to do it on a team jersey? I despise this stuff. I really do. A PR agency or a fluffers or ad agency or whoever you are, stay in your lane, get out of ours.
I think people are losing their heads a bit over it, though, because...
well, what would you go... do you want to see the silver fern as a rainbow?
No, I don't. But apparently in the past they've done it. They've changed...
and got just as much opposition.
I'm sure. But assuming it is what they said, I don't know if it is what... I think it's a bit of a cop-out to try and win some people over. But if it's a way for them to honour 1966 and it's the same colours of the training kit that they have for that World Cup, I don't really mind
clutching at straws, mate, is what they are. Just leave it. It's there for a reason. You don't have to alter things like flags and emblems and badges, mate.
There was someone on some breakfast TV show, it might have been a weekend breakfast show, who was saying, and I thought his argument was all wrong. I thought, if that's the argument of Nike or the argument of England football or the FA, then we know exactly what's happened here. And it was a guy saying, it's inclusive, it's colourful, it brings everyone together. I thought, that's the problem. There we go.
Finally, is it the Canes versus Chiefs final already?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Well, who else is going to make the final in Super Rugby?
Blues, potentially. Brumbies or Reds could. If one of them can host a quarter final, they could absolutely go on the road in New Zealand and win a game. I'll say this about the Chiefs. So they lost to the Reds, beat the Crusaders in week 1 where they were pretty ordinary, to be honest. The only game they've looked really good is that Brumbies game where they were superb. But since then, they've been a bit up and down. They were up 28-0 on the Highlanders with about 30 minutes to go.
Yeah, 3 garbage tries. Yeah,
they should have won by a lot more.
Should have.
And even the Enduro game, they struggled to put the Enduro away. No, I don't think the Chiefs are a lock for the final at all.